I got drawn in on sort of into the subject about what happens after the fire. I just want to share some experience with you.
I learn so much by talking to other people that I meet, and I make really long-standing connections.
Pouring water onto an EV in thermal runways is like pouring water onto the roof of your house when your kitchen's on fire. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm Captain Mohamed Alhanaee from Abu Dhabi Civil Defense. I would like, before starting, just to say I'm really honored to be representing Abu Dhabi Civil Defense Authority, especially on the 53rd anniversary of the UAE National Day. So thank you again for having me. So I figured it would be very interesting for me to talk about the requirements of Abu Dhabi Civil Defense when it comes to Facade, since, just comparing what we have here and us in Abu Dhabi, and see, what we can share together to see if we can improve from our side or your side, hopefully. All right. As an HJ, we're very committed to life safety and property protection in the UAE, and to ensure the full compliance of the codes and standards in the UAE. These are some of the vision, mission, values, and priorities of Abu Dhabi Civil Defense. I just put them on because I wanted to point out the priorities, which is the first priority we have in Abu Dhabi Civil Defense is enhancing civil defense, civil safety and protection. So we're in the industry of saving lives, so we always put that as the top priority in Abu Dhabi. These are some of the completed iconic projects that we have in Abu Dhabi. Since you're dealing with projects of this size, sometimes proper or regular standards that we have and use are not enough to cover it. So we end up using performance-based designs. You're talking about projects like the Louvre or most recently Zayed International Airport, which has the ceiling of the CB, if you see it in the middle. The ceiling height is 64, so you're having this whole space that a regular smoke management system would not cover. So we have to rely on different systems. These are some projects that are in progress right now. Most notably, the Guggenheim Museum, Natural History Museum, Zayed Museum. These are, they're all currently in, I don't know if anybody been there, but they're all built around the same area in Saadiyat Island. Again, we're using performance-based designs to kind of assess some of these. All right, the UAE Fire Life Safety Code of Practice is the code of practice that we use in the UAE. It's a combination of standards that are American and European, and plus the best practices that we've noticed, because the code gets updated every few years. The recent copy is the 2018, and hopefully, if it progressed enough, we'll be able to get the new standard next year. And I would like to point out that the code only covers new buildings. Currently, we don't have any requirements when it comes to existing buildings. However, all buildings, new or existing, they all have to get what we call a building safety certificate, an annual building safety certificate. So in the case of existing buildings, we rely on risk assessment reports through our strategic partners, which we call House of Expertise, basically file consultants. All right, permits. I'm not sure if you have the trade license registration process in the UK, but in the UAE, all suppliers and installers of active and passive systems, as well as the House of Expertise, which is the fire consultants, they have to be registered in civil defense. So, and they have to be registered in every city. So Abu Dhabi Civil Defense Authority will have a trade license, and Dubai Civil Defense will have their own license as well. But they all follow the same requirements because it's a federal resolution. Following that, the plan review process permits, it starts with the initial drawings, and that's basically where the consultant will submit their drawings, and that will cover the general requirements as well, most of the FLS requirements that are for passive systems. I would say most passive systems are usually covered in the initial drawings. The shop drawings is, it'll be more detailed plans that are covered, and they'll have all the letters of the suppliers, contractors involved, details, of all the systems that are going to be used. Mostly, a lot of the active systems are usually introduced in this stage. I just need to point out that both initial drawings and shop drawings are getting reviewed by Abu Dhabi Civil Defense Authority's engineers. Actually, we have one of our leading engineers, Engineer Manar here, so they go through that process. And at the final stage, the inspection, which basically is the handover of the project, to make sure that our inspectors would go on site and make sure that the plans that are been submitted are matching what's on site and was approved by Civil Defense, and there are no deviations between the two. All right, the stages of facade approvals. This is, if we summarize how facade is being approved in civil defense, it will be generally in 4 stages. The first stage will be the testing and certification of cladding systems. So that's when, all the suppliers will have to go through the UAE Fire Code and see the requirements of testing, and they go through to one of the 70 right now, fire labs and certification bodies that we have approved in the UAE to get their testing and approvals, which is, it'll be 2 documents mainly, or 3, the testing report, then the third-party certification issued by the certification body, and then there's a special document that is only specific to the UAE that I'll go over later on, called the Certificate of Compliance, COC. The second stage is the trade licensing requirements. That's following after they do all their testing and they get all the documents ready. The suppliers will have to register with Abu Dhabi Civil Defense and issue a trade license, and that will be when they'll be able to practice their activity in Abu Dhabi. Stage 3 will be plan review by Abu Dhabi Civil Defense, which, at the shop drawing stage, I'll show it in a second. In the shop drawing stage is when the plan review engineers that we have are going to actually review the details of all the facade or the cladding systems that goes into details, all the layers, all the thicknesses, all the specifications to match it with the tested specimen. Okay, and the stage 4 is the installation and on-site inspections. This is very important. I'll go more in details about this. But the HOE, which is the House of Expertise, are actually involved in reviewing and overlooking the installation of the facade system on site. And they have to provide us with reports at the handover. So just to kind of make sure that we're following through with all the layers and not just the testing and then you're submitting something different on site. So we need all these layers covered. All right, so you can see stage 1 and 2 happen at the trade license registration stage, and then plan review, at the shop drawing stage, you'll have stage 3 and the inspection stage 4. All right, I realize I'm in a room full of experts, so I'm not really gonna go in a lot of details about this, but I would like to point out that, it's really unfortunate that we all have to go through an incident in order for things to change. For our case, it was the Address Hotel fire that happened in 2015. Luckily for us, we didn't have any casualties, but the fire, I don't know if anybody remember, but it was actually over New Year's Eve. It was broadcasted, so it was unfortunate. But luckily, after that, huge changes happened to the UAE Fire Code to cover facade systems and requirements, for newer buildings. So far, all newer buildings have been, I think for the most part we haven't really had any incidents, but we still face some challenges when it comes to existing buildings. All right, these are some of the, or really all of the types of facade systems that are in the UAE Fire Code. I'm gonna go in some of the details of the requirements of testing for some, but most notably we have the ACB is very common for us, EIFS systems, sandwich panels. GRC and GRB are most of the time used for decorative purposes, so it's not really full facade systems, but like small areas of the facade they use these systems, and glazing systems as well. All right, for ACP systems, which is for non-fire resistant rated and non-load bearing exterior walls, the testing goes in two phases. The first phase is that all the components of the system have to be tested for two criteria, which is one is the reaction to fire, and in case of high-rise buildings, it has to achieve Class A when it comes to the N13501-1. And then a self-ignition test, which in this case is ASTM D1929. And then the second test would be the full-scale test, the assembly test. And in most cases, it's either the PS 8414 or the NFPA 285. All right. We honestly haven't had any system to be tested like this in case the ACB was actually part of the fire resistant and rated exterior walls. But no supplier is going to go through fire rating testing for such system, but it exists if anybody really wanted to do it. EFS goes through a similar testing. So there's a reaction to fire test, and then there's a self-ignition test. And then one of the full-scale tests, which usually it's one of the three, actually. A lot of times we get the NFPA 285 just because we have a lot of labs in the UAE that does this test, as well as the PS. All right, this is similar to the ACB requirements for fire resistance and exterior walls. It goes through the same thing of two tests that are, reaction to fire and then self-ignition. And then it has to go through a fire rating test. But again, we haven't had, in my career, I haven't seen anybody try to go through these tests. It just commercially doesn't make sense. For glazing system requirements, for non-load bearing curtain walls with glazing, there's a fire rating test, and then you have your impact test. In all honesty, just because commercially it's a lot of stress to have all your glazing be fire rated. So a lot of times the systems because also in the UAE we're very heavy on active systems, so we're not really relying on passive or active. It's always a combination. So they kind of cover each other. So but they all have to go through the impact test. All right. For other systems, like stone cladding and cement board cladding, even though these, the outer layers is non-combustible, but a cladding system is a combination of the fasteners and you have your core. So they still have to go through the same test. Plus, it's an insurance that the system will, maintain structural integrity throughout the test. All right, the COC, the Certificate of Compliance, which is stage one. After the suppliers issue they do their testing and issue their third-party certification, the third-party certification also will issue a document called Certificate of Compliance, which basically covers all the details. It's a summary basically of all of the test report without having to go through the 50 pages, So we're getting all the details we need for us and for our engineers, plan review engineers, to see what they need in this document. There have been cases where we required the test report, but we try not to because obviously it contains a lot of confidential information, and a lot of suppliers, would rather keep it, confidential. So, just going a little bit through it, you have your test reports and, number and then the certificate number, the details about the manufacturer, the model number, obviously, then the description of the product, the test standards, list of test standards, the test descriptions, the specifications of the test specimen, which the plan review engineers use to compare what was submitted at the plan review versus what is on their listing, and the test result and product application. This information here on the right includes the labs and certification bodies details, which, just to make sure that the facilities that was the specimen tested at, as well as the third-party certification were issued by one of the labs and certification bodies in our list. The reason is, the 70 labs and certification bodies actually know the process in the UAE. That's why they have to go through, an approval process, which happen on a federal level, not at a local level. So usually the civil defense HQ would be the one to approve them. And then you have the signatures, the endorsement of the manufacturer as well, the third-party certification, just to ensure that the details here are, correct. All right, stage 2. Trade licensing requirements. So following the COC, the supplier will be ready now to submit all their documents. There are obviously the other documents that other government entities require. There's a list of requirements. But the main ones the technical ones are the one I mentioned. And they submit for approval to get their trade license in order to be able to practice their activity in Abu Dhabi. It actually goes through an auditing and then as well as an inspection. So if, let's say, you're a supplier in Abu Dhabi and you have your warehouse, our inspectors will actually go on the warehouse to make sure that the specimen kite marks are matching what's been submitted. So we're creating different layers of protection here. All right, stage 3, plan review by Abu Dhabi Civil Defense. So at this stage, which happens at the shop drawing stage, our plan review engineers will be reviewing. Actually, before that, the House of Expertise, which are the fire consultants, should be assigned. If there's a building that has a facade system, automatically it's mandatory for the consultant to assign an HOE on the project for this phase, at least, of the project. So we're getting plans submitted for shop drawings that have been reviewed by the House of Expertise, and then they'll have to be approved by our civil defense engineers. All right. Stage 4, the installation and on-site inspection. So the cladding system must be installed according to the approved plan. So on site, I guess the most important detail here would be there has to be 5 inspection reports by the HOE that will be submitted at the handover, and that inspection will cover the 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100% of the project, throughout, just to make sure that all the what was installed on site matches the specimen that's been submitted and the approved plans. All right, some of the challenges we're facing, similarly to here, we have existing buildings. For us, 40-year-old building is very old, but I guess to you guys, this is a new building. But because the UAE Fire Code, the first UAE Fire Code version was issued in 2011, so you can imagine prior to that, we relied on LBC, international codes, but there was not really a set code that is specific to the UAE, and therefore, you get some buildings that are, using systems that are not approved. In the case of the Address Hotel, the reason the fire spread so fast is that they were using bitumen which is obviously flammable in the cladding system, and that really made things catastrophic. All right, the action taken. All, you know, based on the risk assessment reports that have to come in yearly, you know, because every year every building or facility will have to issue a building safety certificate from Abu Dhabi Civil Defense or any civil defense in the other Emirates. The risk assessment will also include the condition that the facade system is in. Obviously, if it's a high risk scenario, then they'll have to replace it, or you know, cover it by you know, let's say the building has sprinkler system, then obviously things will a little bit you know, we'll be able to kind of take it easier. Or, you know, and also it's important to mention that the risk assessment reports usually will mention, you know, a plan that is, you know, that covers a couple of years. That way we know that, you know, in the first year, these are things that have to be changed. Otherwise, we can't give you the certification. By next year, we're hoping, because, you know, you can't expect the owners to change everything, you know, in one go, because it's impossible. It's just, you know, cost-wise, it's not something that I would be able to do. All right. Conclusion. I guess the takeaway from this is I would like to say, even if we have a tested, listed system, you know, that is perfect. It was, you know, on paper, it's perfect. If we're not following through with the other layers, like, you know, the plan reviewing, making sure that on site what's being installed is matching the tested specimen, and then you're not really having a good system anymore. You rather just whatever system you wanted to put in first place, you put in. So that's the takeaway from this. All right, thank you very much.